Hey guys, welcome back for episode 4 of the Help I'm a Camera Nerd podcast. And I'm your host, Films by AW, aka Anderson West. And your other host is...
I'm Mark, and I'm Help I'm a Nerd, and this is the Help I'm a Camera Nerd podcast, episode 4.
So, Mark, I think, we've got a lot of discussions about, the tech, owning. But we're going to have a real discussion now about owning versus renting. What's the difference? What's the pros and cons of both? Our experiences of doing that. And we have, similar and different experiences. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. So I guess, renting and owning. What it is to rent camera gear for someone who's never done that before. What does that mean? What's that?
Well, renting is when you go to a kit house and you tell that kit house all the kit that you need, and they'll come back and they'll tell you what they have. If they have it, they'll tell you alternatives to it if they haven't got it, and then they'll give you a quote of how much that's going to cost. And we're in very different positions because obviously you worked at a company for a lot of years, and I've been freelance for a lot of years, so I always went down the owner route of having my own kit and just hiring in the kit that I needed per shoot. And obviously owning kit, you get to charge the people to use the kit, so it's another way of, increasing your fee and getting more money. But also then you have to put that money in and you have to buy the equipment, and it's going to take you some time before you pay that equipment back. So Anderson he's had a lot more experience than me at renting kit. So you're going to have, I guess, a very different opinion to me. What do you think about the rental situation?
Well, for years, obviously, working at a production company, being head of film at a production company, and now owning one production company, you have to make a decision. Are you going to buy every little bit of kit and let it sit there in your closet or cabinet area, storage area, and just collect dust when you're not using it? Or are you just going to put the cost to a job and hire it as and when you need it? Coming from that perspective and having the flexibility to do that, I always chose the option of going and renting, and where we could. Obviously, there were some jobs where you'd have your basic equipment that you would have, your basic lights, your camera, your stills zooms, lenses, and so you could just do a job. The budget's quite challenged, so you're using what you have to make it work, and 9 times out of 10 it's going to be fine. But in reality, sometimes you get spec'd on a bigger project where you're going to need more lights. You want a slightly different look, so you're going to hire different lenses, and you don't want to be married to the equipment you own and always have to use just that equipment. As creative people, we're going to want to explore how things, the different combinations. That lens might give a certain look and a feel, or I might want a more powerful light than would it make sense for a production company to own, because I just need to light a massive space for just this particular project. So you will go to a kit house. One of the kit houses I have a great relationship with is Provision Manchester, ran by Mark Wallace, and the camera side of it is run by Mark Wallace and Chad, and I don't want to, obviously the lighting guys, Peter, and they all do a fantastic job. So I should have just shouted out Provision Manchester. I shouldn't have mentioned names. Sorry, guys. But I have a great relationship with them, and I was discussing about this the other day with Chad. Actually, sometimes you go in there like, I've got a problem. I need to do this. I need to film something from a higher angle, but the client still needs able to see. I can't just use a DSLR, and we don't have the space to put up some rigging. What do I do? And they'll be like, oh, well, we've got a bazooka we could use. It fits in a small space. You can put a jib on top of it, and you can get that high angle. That was one solution I needed for a project about 2 years ago. And it was just going in and having a discussion. And when you work with a kit house and you have that relationship with an equipment house, they're giving you solutions to your problems. They're technicians. They know how all of that stuff works. But they're having to spec different projects. So they do a lot of they supply the kit for Coronation Street and quite a few ITV dramas. The thing is, they take the experience that they've got from those crews and the solutions they're having, and obviously going on set sometimes with them. And then they could give you that information as well. You know, I'm not going to always go on a $250,000 shoot. I've never been on one, you know, but they'll give that experience of, oh, that you could try that. We had someone on that job use it, and they used it for this. And they're just so helpful in that regard. And they become your partner for that project. But if you just owned your own equipment and you didn't ever seek that expertise out, you're stuck. You're stuck because you're like, oh, I've got to, make this, rig this solution the way I think it will work. And then I'll look at Amazon and buy something. And there's a time and a place for that. But there's other times where you really need to just have that bespoke solution for that project. And then it makes it work easier. Yeah. I'll give you another example. I'm currently making a short film, and we need to use a camera, a car rig. Now, when me and Mark shot one of my previous short films, Family Ties, which is coming out soon, we didn't use a camera rig, a car mount to get the shots of a conversation in the car, and it was a flipping nightmare. It took way longer than it should have done to just get what should have been a simple shot reverse shot scene. Took 3 to 4 hours, whatever, because we were just trying to find the right angles. We overshot in the end because I was like, I'm not sure about this. A few weeks later, we had another job. We had a job in a commercial that I was DPing for Mark, and it was like, okay, we have to. It's for an automotive company, automotive parts company. And it was like, we need to shoot a shot through of a person in the car. And I said, no, we've got to go. We have to use a car rig this time. We have the budget. Let's use it. And in the end, I went to that kit house, Provision, which is like, guys, what's the best solution for this? And they showed me, they took the time with me to show me how I could set it up and use it. And they used that solution, worked like a treat. The shot looks fantastic. And because I was using a smaller camera at the time, I was able to, that I own, by the way, I was able to get a high quality solution. So just because you own kit and you have your own kit doesn't mean you can't use the hired in equipment with it.
Yeah.
With your stuff.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like it complements your own equipment to give you the best possible solution that you need for that. So I can't speak highly enough of using equipment houses. But again, there's a time and a place and a time and a budget. And if you don't have that budget, I know that's when it gets tricky.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. You're basically getting an extra layer of expertise. You're going to learn from these guys because they know the kit inside and out. And some of the issues, I know, when you're trying to do stuff yourself is you'll rock up to shoot. You'll think that it was going to work. It won't work. You talk to these guys in the kit houses about what you want to do. They're going to tell you. They're going to tell you what to use, what they recommend. They'll even let you use it. Like, I remember one of the grad films I was working on, all we could afford were lenses, really. I had the camera, but we wanted lenses. That was something we knew. So we talked to the kit company and they said, come in, bring your camera in. We'll give you some space. You can test every lens we have. All day you can take. We'll just give you a bit of space.
Brilliant.
They just let me test all of those lenses out on my camera, and it was fantastic. The video's on YouTube. You can go and watch it. It's one of my first uploaded YouTube videos, and it was fascinating to see the difference that a lens makes to your camera. It really changes the image. And, without that offer from the very, very nice camera people that were there that allowed us to come in and do that, I would never have known that. Now, what do you like? There's a range of jobs out there. There's a range of different people with various levels of expertise, starting all the way from education, university. Some people might feel intimidated about calling these people that work in these places. They might think, oh, it's a big kit house. They deal with feature films. They're not going to want to help me. What would you say to those people that are just starting out?
If you have money, I mean... it doesn't matter. No, but in all seriousness, I can empathize with that point of view. I remember when I was a trainee and I went into one of the larger kit houses in Manchester and I was so scared. I was thinking like, I'm just going in to have a look around. I'm just curious, are they, they're going to like, well, get out of here, you rookie. You don't need to be here. And in reality, that was ridiculous, right? They understand you're learning, but they also understand you could be a potential customer. If you're a if you become a DP and you have you really like what the service that production company that equipment house gives you, you're gonna tell the production you got to hire kit from there. I know, and again, I only DP, not as often as I used to, but if I am, I'm gonna always say, look, I'm getting the equipment from Provision Manchester, because of the relationship I have with them. So the help they gave me, and obviously the first time I went on, I was like, oh no, I don't know what it worked. They understand. They expect you when you're starting out to, one of the routes to be DP or to work in camera department is to start at a kit house and learn the equipment. You do that, and then you go on set. You have more of that knowledge, and so they're not judging you. And I think, because again, you're a potential customer, and obviously they're really nice people and they understand. But the whole you're a potential customer really helps. I mean, if you're just going in the kit house with the expectation of, well, can I have all this stuff for free? Then obviously that's ridiculous. The point is you're building a working business relationship with these guys and gals, and they allow you to make your clients happy, because if you're satisfying your clients, you're happy, and if you're being satisfied, they're satisfying you as their client. So you got to start thinking, oh, I'm not allowed to be here, and I could be a potential customer and start a business relationship. And again, there's still kit houses I decided to go. I'm like, look, I worked on tons of big stuff. I had to, what I was DPing was more smaller scale, adverts and things like that. So there's elements stuff I still don't know. But a good kitman house won't make you feel bad about that, because like, well, these student stuff, and he's getting jobs, so he's got something going for him. And again, there's so much new equipment coming out all the time that they understand if you don't know. It's their job to understand and know that stuff, and then give it to their customers or rent it to their customers, educate their customers. Again, you're a customer, so think like that. Not in an arrogant way that you're always right, but you're a potential revenue source for them, and so they'll treat you accordingly. So yeah, I'd say that's the big thing I touch on. It's really about you changing your perspective of how you see yourself, and you are a customer. Yeah, that's what I say. But again, the still kit houses, I'm like, ooh, I don't know. And look, I've been doing this 15 years. It's silly, because then I remember, oh no, I'm a director producer and I'm giving them money, so yeah. It's fine if I go in and don't know what I'm on about, because they don't expect me to know everything. And
I mean, you've got to remember as well, the men and women that work in these kit houses, most of them are nerds, and they love to talk about kit.
Yes.
Even if you're not looking to rent, you just want to get some advice on kit and stuff like that. Maybe you're thinking about the next camera to buy. These like people that work there, they'll talk to you. They're nice. They're approachable. I've never gone into a kit house and met a mean person. They are so friendly, so happy to speak to you, to help you. And every kit house I've ever been to when I've been testing kit, they are so accommodating to you, no matter what the budget a lot of the time. Because like you said, they're building relationships. That's what it's about, You may be a student now, but in 5 years' time, you might be directing something for Netflix, and you're going to remember that relationship, and you're going to remember that person. And like you said, now you go back to Provision all the time because you've made those contacts, and you like how they treat you, and how, they respect you, and the advice they give you, and the expertise. So yeah, obviously it is an intimidating thing to do, to go into these places knowing that they send kit out on all different kinds of jobs. But also I remember reaching out when I was at uni to a smaller kit house and going in for a chat, hopeful that maybe they'd give me a job. They didn't, but he was more than happy to have a chat with me for an hour and talk to me about some of the work. And I actually ended up getting some work from that kit house, like a few months down the line. So you just never really know the contacts, right, that you're going to make there. Now, what do you think about some of the benefits of, I guess, renting specifically? Like, put the expertise aside, what other benefits are there?
So I mean, look, the main benefit is that you can try different things out much without a massive cost burden. as you know, you talked about there, you went to a kit house and you specifically mentioned you could try every lens. You could see the look. You could feel the emotion that lens gives you. Not because you've looked at something online or guessed it. You shot it yourself with that. You're testing it. So the thing about their cameras that I think we often forget, obviously, they're interchangeable lens mounts. You can change and put different lenses on. And changing the lens isn't just about changing your field of view or focal distance. It's also about changing the look. The lens is what sees your film. It's what sees it. It's I've heard it described in this way, and I think it's a beautiful way to do it, to describe it. It's the soul of your film. It's the eyes of your film. And some of this glass has been, manufactured in different parts of the world, and they had different techniques, and they used different materials that created a slightly different look, right? Mm-hmm. I know now, the lenses are they're cleaner, or they're trying to replicate that look. But the point of it is, it was this lens from 1985, my favorite lenses, the Zeiss Super Speeds Mark IIs. They're from the 80s. I think they shot Die Hard on them, but they still work. They've been looked after by an equipment house. And so I know I know the look I'm going to get, but I can't afford them. I remember seeing them online for, on a forum, and they were selling for 40,000 euros. I can't afford that. But what I can afford on a job is 400 quid a day, 500 quid a day, or whatever the cost will be, or 600. I can afford that for that project. I can put it to that project and convince the client, like, this look is going to really help the look of it. So these lenses are going to really help the look of this project. I really recommend that we go for it. You can do that on a job by job basis. But if I'm making a 40,000 euro investment or 40,000 pound investment, am I going to hire any other lenses ever? No, you're not going to, because you're going to want to sell these lenses. So when I say sell, you're going to want to sell it as part of your package. I come on shoot with this package and these lenses, and as well as the camera, because you want to be able to charge the client that kit rate that then helps pay off those lenses. But then you're married to that look. You're married to that specific style that pitted kit, in this instance, lenses give you. And whilst that's great, you want to have that flexibility to just say, oh, you know what? It's a different lens. And now I know I'm specifically talking about lenses, but, lighting is the other thing. Lighting, which is at times more important than the camera. It is really. Because if you don't have light, you don't have a seed. Lights are very expensive. Obviously, we have some great manufacturers, Aperture, Godox, Nanlite, really making low-cost solutions, or lower-cost solutions of what we traditionally would have to pay for lights. But, you need a HMI. You need to replicate the sun. You're getting an 18K, or I use 4Ks because I haven't got 18K money or the crews to do that. So, you hire a few of those in. I think a 4K HMI brand new is like a 10 grand light. Yeah. Now, I'm not going to use that all the time, but having the flexibility that I can get that in for that job, for that specific look, for that specific project, means I can elevate my style for that project and show the variety, as opposed to trying to fandangle something and like, oh, I've got a couple of 2K tungstens and putting them side by side and whatever. No, you should. Sorry, just hit the mic. So renting allows you to do that, and it allows you to experiment so much more. But obviously, you don't have that equipment all the time. And with having equipment all the time, you do have benefits of that. And that, and we're going to both talk about that, being owner-operators of having tons of equipment, spending thousands of thousands of pounds on our own equipment. There are benefits to it, and I think that's one thing I'll flip this back to you. What are some of the things you find with the equipment you own that you're able to do with something that you rent?
The great thing about renting is that you're obviously getting to use, or you have the choice to use, the brand new tech. And brand new tech is always the most expensive tech, right? Because it's new and everybody wants to use it.
Yeah.
So there are
100%.
certain things that I lean towards renting. You know, like you said, lighting. I love sky panels. Sky panels are about £4,000, 5,000 each. Can't afford one. Great lights,
A
but
bit more.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like, you know, and you'll start to figure out the more you rent that there's certain things that you're renting frequently, and then you can make that choice. You can be like, all right, well, I'm renting this more frequently.
Exactly.
Let me invest in this because then I can start making money from this. It takes the risk away from you in many ways. It takes that risk of like knowing whether that kit's going to pay off. Now, renting, like you said, isn't going to be available on every job. And owning your own kit is going to allow you to do the lower budget jobs, which sometimes you need to do to get the higher budget jobs. So you can't always rent. It's not always an option. But what I've found over the years is that I'll buy some kit, the camera, some lenses to get me by, and then I'll start renting the bits I need. And you know, one of the other benefits of renting that we haven't talked about is if your kit breaks, they'll send you some more kit that works. That's the whole point that, you know, with a rental company,
100%.
they know that you
100%.
need that kit.
Be insured, of course. You have to insure your
Yeah,
equipment.
yeah, of course. So they're gonna like get that kit out to you as quickly as possible because they know that time is money when it comes to film, you know. So, and that's really nice. That's really nice. I mean, you and me have both had situations before where a card has messed up or something like that, and you know, renting isn't necessarily going to stop that from happening, but it's going to reduce the risk because you know that that kit is tested. And they're not letting stuff go out a lot of the time that isn't going to work. And if it doesn't work, they're going to get you something new at no extra cost because obviously that's what you're paying for and that's what you're getting, that service.
Yes.
So there is a certain safety blanket feeling that you get from renting that you sometimes have with your own kit, that kind of nerves of, oh, I hope I've been recording this clip for the past 40 minutes. I hope nothing goes wrong. So...
Yeah.
You know, there are benefits and there is more security with renting sometimes over buying. But, you know, I've bought like straight from uni, we purchased kit and we gradually over the years we built that kit up. But like you said, you know, you want to use those bigger lenses, you're never going to be able to afford to buy them. I mean, maybe you can, but I've used kit that there's no way I'll ever be able to afford. Not now or in the distant future. And it's whether or not I really want to even spend that amount of money if I had it on something that, like you said, I might not want for every job. So that's where renting comes in.
Yeah, 100%, man. I think that's the thing that I would say frightens me about owning. You know, I own, you know, quite a bit of kit, you know, but you know, when you have a quiet period, it's just sat there. It's just sat there and you're like, I'm not making any money from it. It's just taking up space. Now, obviously, the flip side is when you, like you said, when you have a smaller project, you can just take that equipment out. You're not worrying about the hiring it in, getting it, all that. But, you know, there's times when you literally just, you don't need it. You don't need it. And I think that flexibility, it allows you to expand and retract your equipment base as quickly as possible. But obviously the benefit of owning equipment is getting the shorthand. You know, in previous podcasts you mentioned about gimbals. So I hired gimbals quite a bit at my old company, and it got to a point where it's like we you know, they're really good. They're really good, but you only get better if you practice on it and you kind of have the shorthand and the knack. Obviously gimbals are easier to use than city cams. But you're not going to get that if you're only renting it once in a while, you know? And obviously it's a specialist item, so it's still to rent a little expensive. But you take that investment, you buy it, and then you practice and you get that expertise in that item. You start to know, oh, it does this that time, or if you do it this way, or they manufacture it to go this way, but you could actually do this, and then it gets the shot you actually want. And I think that's what's really appealing about owning. You start to get that shorthand for your equipment. You start to make a workflow for that equipment, and you're just getting those hours in because you know the limitations of the equipment you have. Whereas sometimes you rent, and obviously that stuff is obviously better than the stuff you own, but there's still limitations. There's still limitations, but you're not able to understand those limitations unless you hire them more. I'll go back to, my favorite lens, the super speeds. I knew the limitations because we hire them so much, but if I just, I knew like, okay, this, the 18 for this one, you gotta, worry about that, or, whatever, or, it might be a bit hard because it's an older lens, for instance. But I knew those limitations because we hire them so often. Now, if I did one of these and I wanted to hire some cooks, I might not know the limitations of those of some Cook S4s. I might not know it. I'm sure there are not any. I'm sure the lens is like, the best lens you can buy. But, I would know those limitations, and thereby I might push it too far, or I might something that I'm like, oh, that's strange. Oh, well, if you did this, this, and this, and this, then you would know. So that's the only downside, of not owning your stuff. And I think from a camera perspective, I think this is what, renting the cameras, the camera bodies, understanding how to expose for a certain camera. I'd love to say that every camera you can expose the same way, but as we found in recent years, for instance, shooting on a Sony f55 and shooting for S-Log is completely different than shooting on a Red Scarlet, Red Komodo, Red Epic for their RAW. How we expose those images, you have to do it slightly differently. It's not just, oh yeah, I mean, you can look at the monitor and say, oh, it looks all right, but you shouldn't. To get optimal, to get the optimal use of those cameras, you got to understand what those limitations are. And you don't always understand that if you're just renting. Mm-hmm. You have to, sometimes, you own it and you understand that camera. It's almost like a glove you just stick in your hand and you're getting used to every nook and cranny of it. Sorry to use that OJ metaphor. Oh my gosh, OJ, some say metaphor.
It's getting a little heated in here.
Oh my gosh.
So
heated. Oh my gosh.
So the benefits, we talked about the benefits, is obviously you're getting to use a lot of this kit. But the issue is, you might not necessarily know what you're looking for, right? So one of the things that we did this year, and I would advise anyone to do this, right? Because it's free to go to, you just got to register. But let's say you don't know what you're looking for, you just want to see what's out there. And a kit house maybe isn't going to just let you wander around the warehouse. We went to the BSC Expo this year in February.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about the BSC Expo, what's there, what you can expect, and why is it beneficial to go there?
So, I mean, the BSC Expo is a massive trade show. The BSC Expo is a massive trade show. And the thing I find about it is it's so good to kind of be able to go there, because you're able to understand what's the latest technology, what's the latest things, what's the latest equipment that you can use. Walking around, and we were able to see some of the top end equipment. We were going to when I went in 2022 with my other friend, we went and saw the Top Gun booth where all the how they mounted the cameras in those F-16s, and that was really fascinating to see. And this year when we went to the 2023 BSC Expo, we were able to start to see some of the latest cameras, some of the latest lighting, some of the different solutions, some solutions that you're not even like, oh, I didn't know I would be bothered about that. They're like a new battery pack. You're thinking, oh, actually, that's really good, seeing smaller batteries. And there's one thing, obviously we have some wonderful resources online, websites, newsshooter.com, CineD. They're really useful as resources, as a port of call to kind of look at what's new. But there's nothing like feeling that equipment in your hand and seeing, actually, I saw this online and I thought I'd like it, but actually holding and seeing it, it's not as practical as I thought it would be, right? Or sometimes online, and not from those websites, maybe from like, say, someone who's been paid to market this or hype it. They're like, oh, this is the most awesome thing ever. And then you use it in person, you're thinking, what? Yeah. This isn't that. What is this? So, yeah, going to the BSC Expo, just seeing all the plethora of stuff that's out there, seeing other different Canon manufacturers, seeing like how small a Komodo actually was in person. It was like, whoa, for instance, and then or the Raptor, or then seeing how on the Sony Venice, how the rail tow extender works in person. You're like, wow, that's actually really cool.
Yeah.
Everyone should go. Obviously, guys, in America, you have NAB and a few other ones. In the UK, we have the BSC Expo, and then I think we have another one, Cinegear, I want to say. I haven't been to those, but it's free to go. It's good to go, and you kind of see, you spend a couple of hours, you get a good seeing what's there, and you get to see some of the equipment that maybe your kid house doesn't have.
Yeah. And
that your kid house may not have, and you can say, oh guys, I saw this, get that.
Yeah, and you also get to talk to the people that work for these companies. Like, you can talk to people that work at Blackmagic or at Aperture, and like, when else are you going to get to, network and meet these people that are actually working for the companies that make all of this kit? Red, Arri, they're all there. You can talk to them about their equipment, and like, that's an amazing opportunity. And, there's no requirement. As you can go, free tickets, you just got to register. And it is great networking. We spent, like an hour talking to Blackmagic just about how we use their kit, how other people use their kit, what like DaVinci is doing that's new and stuff, and what it's offering. And, that's invaluable in many ways. It's such a good experience to be able to actually get on the front line with these people and talk to them. And you don't have to have had any experience. You can just go up and talk to them. It's really a great thing to do. I would advise anyone to visit there at least once. But yeah, try and go if you can. I know I'll be going next year. It gives you an idea of what you might want to rent, the kind of kit you might want to play with, maybe what you might want to buy.
Yes.
And you can probably take your own camera and try some lenses on it. They had like the Cook S4s there, just there on the side, just lenses. You could probably just pick them up, say, can I try this on my camera and see what it looks like? They're going to talk to you about how it would work with your kit. You had a good chat with the battery manufacturer about the new V-Locks they were releasing and stuff like that. Aperture's new tube lights, which I know you were a big fan of, and just seeing how
Infinite bars, they look.
You get to play with that kit, and it's not even out, right? It wasn't at that point. It hadn't actually been released yet.
No, it wasn't. I don't think it had been announced. I don't think it was announced at that point.
Yeah.
It was that was the first appearance for that light, for instance.
Yeah, and they've got tilters there. Even the manufacturers that are working a lot with like DSLRs and stuff like that, it ranges in who's there. It's not just the top people, it's everyone that you're buying kit from. Small rigger there. It's really great to kind of see this stuff, and just, it gives you a bit of security, doesn't it? That you're buying from a manufacturer that's taking itself seriously, that's interested in the industry, that's in the industry and creating equipment for the various cameras in the industry. But yeah, it's like, this is how this is what you do when you're a camera nerd. you get interested in the tech, and you want to see the tech, and you want to know what's coming. You want to get ahead of the curve, right? Because it's about this industry and like cameras and stuff. It's about staying ahead of the tech. You've got to keep on top of it. You can't fall behind, because it's always moving. It's moving quicker now than it was 10 years ago, and it'll only get faster. So it's like, it's a way of being present, learning, and it's free. It's free to anyone. Yeah,
everyone should go. Not everyone. If you're into camera stuff, obviously, because everyone goes, then it'll be packed and no one will be able to go. But it's a wonderful event, and like, again, having that tactile experience, you can see it, but then you can also get a gauge of what the industry wants, and like, I think that's where I got the gauge. Well, I didn't realize. I love the idea of a Sony Venice, for instance, but I did not realize how. The mere fact that it was on pretty much every booth reminded me, okay, this is the main. It's either this or an Alexa that people use. Regardless of how you feel about Sony's, that camera is widely accepted. And then the amount of FX6s we saw and Komodos, it's just about like seeing what the manufacturers are, the cameras, they're putting their rigs or their accessories onto, gives you a gauge. Okay, that's what we use it. And seeing those accessories, you can go, oh, that camera can be used like this with that accessory. I think that's really a really fascinating thing. And again, the lighting, being able to see some of the lights in person, get a good gauge of how it is. Wonderful experience. I'd say, if you're into to cameras, go. If you're learning, go. You can talk to them, be open about to different manufacturers about it, and it gives you ideas. I haven't bought anything since been then because I had to give myself control myself this year for buying equipment. But there's definitely a few things that's like, I like the idea of that is really nice. And then as well, you can give your work, your university friends who work for Blackmagic, can give them grief about, where's this box camera coming? We want this box camera that has an interchangeable mounts. Where's it coming? And you can hear the inside, which we won't talk about on this podcast. But so I think it's really interesting to be able to do that. In closing, Mark, highlight renting v buying in your perspective.
The highlight for me with renting is always lenses, because like you said, it's just too expensive, and lenses make a big difference to the image. And I love renting lenses. It's something I'm never going to be able to invest a lot of money in, because I want to chop and change depending on the job. Something I talk to the director about, something we discuss. So yeah, I would always advise, give renting a go. Call a kit house, ask to come in and try some stuff. I'm sure most of the time, unless they're really busy, they're going to say yes. And it's, free experience. It's a way of getting hands-on time with kit that you might not be able to afford. It's a way to just learn. So even if you haven't got a job coming up that you can rent on, I would still say give a kit house a call, start making those connections and building those friendships, because it's better that you start that stuff earlier than later, right?
100%. And what I'd add on to that is, look, also you're starting to find out how much things cost. If you don't know how much something costs to rent, you're not able to then make that estimate on a job, because often, maybe on bigger projects, you can't just say, I want this, even though the budget isn't there and they can increase the budget. That's not always possible. But if you know how much stuff costs, you can start to make a gauge of, okay, this is the kind of budget I need to get for my client beforehand so I can get these in. So that's what, that's my other tip. And we're going to be doing a tips video in the near future. Yes, so keep an eye out for that. So I'm going to leave it to Marky Mark to close out this episode. And yeah.
So thanks for coming, guys. Come back again. We'll be releasing these intermittently on each of us YouTube channel as well. You can get it on Spotify, all the podcast sites. So remember, like, subscribe, come back again, and watch us next time.